I think we should probably start by talking about where we were. Well, not where we were, because we were obviously watching television. But what were the circumstances like when you first saw the ending of The Sopranos? What did you think about it?
I first thought that this was a terrible time for my cable to go out. That was the thought I had, that I think a lot of people did at the time.
I think so. There was a sense of tension throughout the entire scene, the way that the frames were shot, the way that things seemed to have a lot of weight around them, and then when the weight collapsed upon itself, and then there was confusion, and once the credits rolled, I thought, what an interesting way to end a series by actually essentially not ending it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very bold choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think like a lot of the rest of the country, I assumed the cable had gone out. And then I was immediately rewinding in my mind and literally rewinding to see what I missed. What were we told? What were we not told?
Yeah.
I've watched it many times since then. I'm not sure my opinion has changed or that I have any better information, but there was definitely a sense of like stopping too suddenly in a car, but mentally.
Yes. Well, and I just remember in the lead up, and you remember this too, but in the weeks that preceded that finale, everyone was wondering how are they going to finish the story. And there were these running lists of unfinished business. And we haven't dealt with this, we haven't dealt with that, they haven't done this, they haven't done that. What about the war that's going on or that's about to go on? And you could almost see people's stress levels rising as we were getting closer and closer to the 1 hour mark in the finale. And it's like, well, they haven't dealt with any of that. They haven't done, they've dealt with some of it, but not all of it. How are they possibly, now we've got 3 minutes left, how are they gonna, and they didn't. They didn't at all.
I like that. I like the idea of it does confront our expectations of what an ending of a television show should be. What do we actually need out of that final hour in order to make the entire viewing experience viable? I'm not sure there's ever a particular answer that can be derived from it, but it did challenge the notion that there's only one way, which is to, check off all these things on a list, because no matter how long that list is, there's no show could ever check off everything and make everybody satisfied with the ending.
Particularly not that show, where I think people are still asking, what happened to the Russian? Did he run off? Was he hit in the head? And no answer they get is ever going to satisfy them. But there is something to be said for implying as strongly as possible that things just continue.
Yeah.
Behind this dark scrim, we don't get to see it anymore.
But
things continue. A traditional finale, as the WB announcer used to pretentiously say, does try to wrap things up, and there's this valedictory feel to it, but then for me sometimes that's a little sad because you're saying goodbye to these characters, and in the case of The Sopranos, you can sort of tell yourself, we haven't said goodbye to them. You can just throw in the first DVD right afterwards, and that they're back.
That's
you don't
sort of
have to think
straight.
anything like sad. I don't know. I'm sentimental.
But that's the thing you were saying, though. It just occurs to me that it's a little bit odd that we expect television shows to end, because television shows never actually begin. Like, there's not a big fanfare, there's not a big flourish when a television show begins. We simply begin watching the show. And the presumption is always that the characters on the show had a life that preceded our joining the narrative and observing it. And so in theory, it should be perfectly okay for a show just to stop. Or for it to kind of shut, like, the show opens a window into this world, and we get to look through the window for 3 or 5 or 7 or however many seasons, and then they close the window, and we don't get to look anymore.
But I think there's a really David Chase makes a series of very conscious aesthetic choices in that scene. And just as Sarah was speaking, I was thinking of the hypothetical of they're all at Holstein's, they're eating onion rings, and the camera kind of just pulls away and we fade out quietly. That's one choice he could have made, which would satisfy what you're saying, which is that, we encountered this world, we spent some time there, and now we're just going to kind of wander away from it or not be part of it.
Right.
But I rewatched the finale again, and I have a more equitable distance from it now. So I do think my view on it has evolved and changed. My feelings were so charged going into it. What bothered me at the time, or what I thought about a lot of the time, was aesthetically in those last 10 minutes he makes a ton of choices that as a filmmaker he knows exactly what he's doing.
Right.
If you show a vaguely menacing man, the members only jacket guy, coming in right before AJ, we get a full view of him. We see him stirring his coffee at the counter. This is someone in the scene that he's telling us is somehow involved in something. We have that
Right.
shot of him passing the table, going into the bathroom, which recalls The Godfather.
Right.
And this is like a classic moment in cinema. And then what has stuck in my mind about that whole episode, which is a good solid hour of TV, is Meadow parking the car.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
And so what is the point of getting as a filmmaker, he cuts and edits that and shot it a certain way that amps up our tension of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So what I found most interesting aesthetically about that is Meadow finally parks that stupid car. She walks in the door, and Tony is just... Actually, you know what? I don't know if we see her walk in the door. But we don't see her walk in the door.
We hear the door.
The doorbell goes. Tony looks up, and we only have a half a moment of him looking up. So these are a series of aesthetic choices designed to provoke a specific response. And now I can look back at it and say, I think he was just kind of goofing on us a little bit.
Yeah.
In what we expect, and that's something consistently that he's done with the show, is goofing on our expectations or playing with them.
Yes.
So I'm okay. I'm a little more okay than I was with it at the time. I think now he did it with an air of bemused detachment, not I'm going to screw with these people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could be wrong though.
Well, and it's totally in character for the show. I mean, that's the thing that becomes clear when you do. It is kind of an emotionally wrenching ending when you first see it, because you are. And remember, this is 2007, and no one had ended a show like that in that way before. So now I think maybe we expect when a show has a certain level of artistic ambition for it to end in a less than conventional way.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a way it sort of cleared the terrain for other showrunners to go build their houses, this particular show, and not just with the ending, but just generally. But the way that the show kind of just pulls you away. It just pulls you away. It grabs you by the scruff of the neck and says, "You're not watching this anymore." It feels violent, and that's why the first column that I wrote right after the finale said that I felt like David Chase had whacked the viewer. That it was us that got whacked, and I think a lot of people felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's of course an entire contingent that says, well, Tony got whacked, or his family got killed, or something violent happened in that diner.
There was that Rosetta Stone document proving in incredible detail and look, I read a lot of true crime. Most of it is bad, and some of that little cottage industry of trying to explain this is why he definitely got killed, and this is why you're definitely being told, and this is why you're an idiot if you don't believe that, sort of reminded me of the lengths that JFK conspiracy theorists and ripperologists will sometimes go to, where it's like this gossamer taffy thread of proof. I don't actually think it's completely outside the realm of possibility that Tony does get killed. And if David Chase, on his deathbed, were like, fine, bastards, the Russian lived, Tony died, leave me the fuck alone, let me die in peace.
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually have any problem with that. I wouldn't feel like that was a retcon or anything like that.
Yeah.